The screech of tires against wet pavement pierced the quiet night as Owen Bennett watched in horror while the sleek silver Aston Martin hydroplaned across the intersection, crashing into the guardrail with a sickening crunch. For a moment he froze, his 6-year-old daughter Emma's hand gripped tightly in his own as rain pelted their faces beneath the insufficient shelter of their shared umbrella. "Daddy, that car crashed." Emma tugged at his hand, her voice small but urgent. Owen snapped into action, kneeling quickly to look his daughter in the eye. "Emma, stay right here under the bus shelter. Don't move, I need to help." "But Daddy, no buts." He guided her to the bench, thankful the rain-soaked evening meant they were the only ones waiting for the late bus. "Count to 100 slowly, okay? I'll be right over there." Owen dashed across the street, his worn work boots splashing through puddles as he approached the mangled luxury car. The hood had crumpled like paper, steam hissing from the radiator into the cold spring air. Through the spider-webbed windshield, he could make out a figure slumped over the steering wheel. "Hey, can you hear me?" Owen called, trying the driver's door. It was jammed, the frame twisted from impact. He moved to the passenger side, relieved when it opened with a groan of protesting metal. The interior light revealed a woman, perhaps in her early 30s, blood trickling from a cut on her forehead. Her eyes fluttered as the cold rain swept in through the open door. "Don't move," Owen said, reaching in carefully. "I'm going to call an ambulance." "No hospitals," the woman mumbled, stirring. Her voice was surprisingly strong despite her condition. "No press. Lady, you just wrapped your $100,000 car around a guardrail. You need medical attention." Owen was already dialing 911 on his battered phone. Her eyes opened fully then, startlingly clear and deep brown despite the circumstances. "Please." Something in her gaze made Owen pause. He'd completed the call by then, and emergency services were on their way, but her evident distress seemed to be about more than just the accident. "My daughter's waiting across the street," he said, glancing back toward Emma, who was watching wide-eyed from the bus shelter. "I need to check on her. The ambulance is coming. Just help me out, I'm fine." The woman tried to shift but winced, her elegant hand moving to her ribs. "Stay still." "What's your name, Victoria?" she replied after a moment's hesitation. "Victoria Lancaster." The name tickled something in Owen's memory, but he couldn't place it. He reached back toward Emma and waved, signaling he was okay. "I'm Owen Bennett. That's my daughter Emma." "Do you have someone I can call?" Victoria's gaze drifted past him to the little girl in the bus shelter, and something in her expression softened. "No, there's no one." Owen frowned. He knew what it was like to have no one to call in an emergency. Since Melissa had died 3 years ago from cancer, it had been just him and Emma against the world, piecing together a life from his carpenter's wages and occasional odd jobs. In the distance, sirens wailed. Victoria tensed visibly. "The paparazzi follow ambulances sometimes," she murmured, more to herself than to him. "The vultures will be all over this by morning." Owen's confusion must have shown on his face because she gave a small, pained laugh. "You really don't recognize me, do you?" Owen shrugged, rain dripping from his jacket. "Should I?" Before she could answer, paramedics arrived, flooding the scene with flashing lights. 2 EMTs approached quickly, and Owen stepped back as they began assessing Victoria. He returned to Emma, who leapt into his arms. "Is the lady okay, Daddy?" she asked, her small arms wrapping around his neck. "I think so, sweetheart," he replied, watching as the paramedics helped Victoria from the car. Despite her protest about hospitals, she didn't resist as they guided her to the ambulance. Just before they closed the doors, she turned and found Owen in the crowd of gathering onlookers. Their eyes met briefly, and he raised his hand in a small wave. The doors closed and the ambulance pulled away. Owen sighed, realizing they'd missed their bus. It would be another 40 minutes until the next one. He hoisted Emma onto his hip. "Looks like we're walking home tonight, Princess. But it's raining, Daddy. We've got our umbrella." He forced a smile. "And I'll make hot chocolate when we get home." As they walked the 15 blocks to their small apartment, Owen couldn't shake the image of Victoria's eyes, not just their warmth, but the unmistakable weight of solitude in them. He recognized that look. He saw it in the mirror every morning. The next day, Owen dropped Emma off at school before heading to his job site. a high-end renovation in one of Portland's wealthier neighborhoods. As the newest carpenter on the crew, he'd been assigned the tedious task of refinishing the ornate banisters in the main stairwell. By lunchtime, his hands were cramping from the detailed work. "Bennett," his foreman's voice boomed across the partially demolished living room. "There's someone asking for you out front." Owen frowned, setting down his tools. Who would be looking for him here? He made his way through the construction debris to the front of the house, where a sleek black town car idled at the curb. As he approached, the back door opened, and Victoria Lancaster emerged, looking remarkably composed for someone who'd been in a serious accident the night before. A small bandage at her temple was the only visible evidence of the crash. She wore a tailored pantsuit that probably cost more than Owen's monthly rent. "Mr. Bennett," she said, extending her hand. "I hoped I might find you here." Owen wiped his sawdust-covered hands on his jeans before shaking hers, acutely aware of the calluses on his palm against her smooth skin. "Miss Lancaster, how did you find you? It wasn't difficult," she smiled, revealing a slight dimple in her right cheek. "I wanted to thank you properly for your help last night." Owen shifted uncomfortably. "Anyone would have done the same, perhaps, but it was you who did." She reached into her purse and withdrew an envelope. "I'd like to express my gratitude." Owen didn't reach for it. "That's really not necessary." Victoria tilted her head, studying him with those same penetrating eyes that had caught him off guard the night before. "I insist, and I decline respectfully." He crossed his arms. "I'm glad you're okay, though. You seemed pretty adamant about avoiding the hospital." A shadow crossed her face. "Yes, well, I have my reasons." She tucked the envelope away. "Perhaps there's another way I can thank you. Dinner, perhaps?" The invitation caught Owen completely off guard. I have my daughter." "Bring her along." Victoria's expression softened at the mention of Emma. "I'd like to meet her properly." Warning bells rang in Owen's head. Beautiful, wealthy women didn't typically invite struggling single fathers to dinner without an ulterior motive. Yet something in Victoria's manner seemed genuinely earnest. "Why?" he asked bluntly. Victoria blinked, apparently unused to such directness. "Because in a world where most people want something from me, you helped me expecting nothing in return. That's refreshing." Owen considered her words. "I get off at 5. Emma's after-school program ends at 5:30. I'll send the car for you both at 6. When Owen hesitated, she added, "Just dinner, Mr. Bennett, no strings attached." Against his better judgment, Owen nodded. "Okay." Victoria's smile was like sunshine breaking through clouds. "Excellent. Until tonight, then." As she slipped back into the town car, Owen's foreman appeared at his shoulder. "Do you know who that was?" he asked, voice hushed with awe. Owen shrugged. "Victoria Lancaster." Victoria Lancaster, as in Lancaster Tech, as in the Lancaster Foundation, as in one of the richest women in America. The foreman whistled low. "What does she want with you?" Owen watched the town car disappear around the corner. "Dinner, apparently." That evening, Owen found himself scrutinizing his limited wardrobe with uncharacteristic concern. Emma sat on his bed, legs swinging, as he held up his one decent button-down shirt. "Is this a date, Daddy?" she asked, her head tilted in a perfect imitation of his own questioning look. Owen sighed. "No, sweetheart. Miss Lancaster just wants to say thank you for helping her last night." "Is she pretty?" Owen's hands stilled on the shirt buttons. "Why do you ask?" "Because you're wearing your special cologne, the one Mommy gave you." A pang shot through Owen's chest. Emma's observations were becoming more astute as she grew older. "She seems nice, and yes, she's pretty, but this isn't a date." Emma nodded sagely. "Okay, but if it was a date, that would be okay too. Mommy said you shouldn't be alone forever." Owen crossed to the bed and gathered his daughter in a tight hug, marveling at her resilience and wisdom beyond her years. "When did you get so smart, huh?" "I've always been smart," Emma declared, wriggling free. "Can I wear my sparkly shoes?" By 6 o'clock, Owen and Emma were waiting outside their apartment building. Emma wore her favorite purple dress and the sparkly shoes she'd requested, while Owen had settled on dark jeans and the blue button-down that Melissa had always said brought out his eyes. The same black town car from earlier pulled smoothly to the curb, and the driver stepped out to open the rear door. Owen was surprised to find Victoria herself inside rather than having sent an empty car. "Hello, Mr. Bennett," she said, then smiled warmly at Emma. "And you must be Emma." "I'm Victoria." Emma, normally shy with strangers, beamed at the attention. "Are you a princess? You look like one." Victoria laughed, the sound light and genuine. "No, not a princess, just someone who wants to thank your dad for being so kind." The drive was shorter than Owen expected. They pulled up to a waterfront restaurant that he'd passed many times but never entered, knowing it was far beyond his means. "I hope you don't mind," Victoria said, noting his expression. "They have excellent food and the private dining room will afford us some peace." Private dining room. Of course. Inside, they were whisked past the main dining area to a secluded room with panoramic views of the river. A waiter appeared immediately with menus, including a special children's version for Emma that doubled as a coloring page. Owen watched as Victoria interacted with his daughter, answering her numerous questions with patient sincerity. There was none of the condescension adults often displayed when speaking to children. "So what exactly do you do, Miss Lancaster?" Owen asked once they'd ordered. "Victoria, please." She took a sip of her water. "I'm the CEO of Lancaster Technologies. We develop medical devices primarily." Owen nodded slowly. "That explains why my foreman nearly had a heart attack when you visited today." Victoria's smile turned wry. "Does it bother you, what I do, who I am? Should it?" "Most people are either intimidated or see dollar signs when they learn my identity." She leaned forward slightly. "You didn't recognize me last night, and you refused my money today. I'm trying to figure out if you're exceptionally principled or simply unimpressed." Owen considered her question as their appetizers arrived. "I guess I've learned that money doesn't shield you from life's real hardships. It might make some things easier, but the important stuff, love, loss, purpose, that's the same for everyone." Victoria's expression grew contemplative. "That's perceptive." "Not really, just experienced." Owen helped Emma spread her napkin in her lap. "My wife died 3 years ago, cancer. We had good insurance, but it still wiped out our savings. The bills kept coming long after the funeral." "I'm very sorry," Victoria said softly. Owen shrugged. "Life goes on, you adapt. Emma and I were doing okay." "Daddy builds beautiful things," Emma piped up, coloring enthusiastically on her menu. "He made me a dollhouse that's prettier than the ones in stores." Victoria's eyes warmed. "Is that so? Your daddy must be very talented." "He is. And he tells the best bedtime stories, too." "Emma," Owen gently admonished, embarrassed by his daughter's praise. "I'd like to hear more about your work, actually," Victoria said. "My foundation is renovating a historic building downtown for a children's center. The contractor we hired is competent but lacks vision." The conversation flowed surprisingly easily after that. Victoria asked intelligent questions about Owen's carpentry, and he found himself describing projects with enthusiasm he hadn't felt in years. Emma contributed occasional observations, clearly pleased to be included in the adult conversation. By the time dessert arrived, a chocolate confection that made Emma's eyes widen with delight, Owen realized he was genuinely enjoying himself. Victoria Lancaster was unlike any woman he'd met since Melissa. Despite her wealth and position, there was an authenticity to her that resonated with him. "May I ask you something personal?" Owen said as they lingered over coffee and Emma's hot chocolate. Victoria nodded, though a hint of wariness entered her expression. "Last night, why were you so against going to the hospital? And what was that about paparazzi?" Victoria sighed, tracing the rim of her coffee cup with one manicured finger. "The press has been relentless lately. My company is developing a revolutionary medical device that could dramatically reduce the cost of certain treatments. There are powerful interests who would prefer we fail." "That doesn't sound like tabloid material," Owen observed. "It's not just that." Victoria hesitated. 6 months ago, I ended a relationship with someone who didn't take it well. He's been feeding stories to the gossip column's fabrications, mostly, but damaging nonetheless. A car accident would just be more fodder." Owen frowned. "Sounds like a real prince." "He had a certain charm," Victoria admitted ruefully. "Unfortunately, it masked a profound sense of entitlement. When I wouldn't give him what he wanted, a position on my board, that he wasn't qualified for, things turned ugly." I'm sorry. Victoria looked up, her expression suddenly vulnerable. The hardest part is never knowing who to trust. Everyone wants something. Not everyone, Owen said quietly. Their eyes met across the table, and something unspoken passed between them. The moment was broken when Emma yawned widely, chocolate smeared adorably around her mouth. I think someone's ready for bed, Owen said, smiling at his daughter. Victoria insisted on driving them home, and Owen didn't protest. As the car pulled up to his modest apartment building, he felt a twinge of embarrassment at the contrast between their worlds. Victoria, however, showed no reaction. Thank you for a lovely evening, she said as Owen helped a sleepy Emma out of the car. We should be thanking you, Owen replied. Victoria seemed to hesitate, then reached into her purse and handed him a business card. Call me. Perhaps we could do this again. Owen accepted the card, surprised by the simple gesture. No presumptuous arrangements, no overtures, just an invitation to continue whatever was beginning between them. I'd like that, he said. Victoria's smile lingered in his mind long after he'd tucked Emma into bed and retired to his own room. He placed Victoria's business card on his nightstand, wondering what on earth a billionaire CEO could possibly see in a struggling carpenter with a second-hand truck and mounting bills. Yet something told him Victoria Lancaster saw more in him than his circumstances, just as he saw more in her than her wealth. The following week, Owen found himself in an unexpected situation, fielding regular text messages from Victoria while trying to focus on his work. What had begun as occasional check-ins had evolved into a running conversation that spanned topics from their respective days to deeper discussions about life, loss, and resilience. On Friday afternoon, his phone buzzed with a new message. Would you and Emma like to join me at my lake house this weekend? Completely understand if it's too short notice. Owen stared at the text, unsure how to respond. They'd shared dinner twice more since their first evening together, each time with Emma present, each time in the controlled environment of a restaurant. A weekend at Victoria's lake house represented a significant shift in their dynamic. Before he could overthink it, he typed back, Emma has been asking when she'll see you again. What time should we arrive? Victoria's response came immediately. I'll send the car at 10 tomorrow morning if that works. Bring swimsuits. The weather should be perfect. Owen pocketed his phone, a mix of anticipation and anxiety swirling in his stomach. That evening, as he helped Emma pack a small overnight bag, he tried to manage her expectations. Remember, sweetheart, this is just a friendly visit. Miss Victoria has been kind to invite us. Emma looked up from carefully folding her favorite swimsuit. Do you like her, Daddy? Like her? Owen felt his face warm. She's become a friend. Mommy would like her, Emma said matter-of-factly. She's nice and smart and doesn't talk to me like I'm a baby. The simple observation hit Owen like a physical blow. Emma was right. Melissa would have appreciated Victoria's straightforward manner and genuine warmth. The realization both comforted and unsettled him. The next morning, the promised car arrived precisely at 10. The drive to the lake took nearly an hour, winding through increasingly rural landscapes until they turned onto a private road that snaked through tall pines. The lake house that eventually came into view was actually a stunning modern structure of glass and cedar, perched on a bluff overlooking a pristine lake. Victoria greeted them on the expansive deck, dressed casually in linen pants and a simple blouse, a far cry from her usual corporate attire. The transformation made her seem more approachable, though no less elegant. Welcome, she said, her smile widening as Emma launched herself forward for an enthusiastic hug. I thought we might swim and have lunch on the deck. After that, there's a trail that leads to a lovely viewpoint if you're interested in a short hike. The day unfolded with an ease that surprised Owen. Victoria had prepared a simple but delicious lunch, and afterward, they spent hours in and around the lake. Owen discovered that, beneath Victoria's polished exterior, was a woman who didn't hesitate to participate in Emma's elaborate water games, her laughter ringing out across the lake when Emma splashed her unexpectedly. Later, as promised, they hiked to a scenic overlook. Emma raced ahead on the trail, her energy seemingly boundless, while Owen and Victoria followed at a more measured pace. "She's remarkable," Victoria observed, watching Emma examine a particularly interesting rock formation. "So resilient and joyful despite everything she's been through." "Kids are adaptable," Owen said. "Sometimes I think she's handled Melissa's death better than I have." Victoria glanced at him. "How so?" Owen struggled to articulate the thought. "Emma grieved, still does sometimes, but she also embraces each day fully. I feel like I've been stuck in survival mode for 3 years working, paying bills, making sure Emma has what she needs. I haven't really lived." "Until recently?" Victoria's question was gentle, her eyes searching his face. Owen met her gaze steadily. "Maybe things have felt different lately." They reached the overlook, where Emma was already exclaiming over the spectacular view of the lake below. The three of them stood together, Emma between them, and Owen was struck by how much they resembled a family in that moment. The thought must have shown on his face because Victoria's expression softened questioningly. Without overthinking it, Owen reached across and took her hand, her fingers interlaced with his naturally, as if they'd been doing this for years rather than minutes. That evening, after a simple dinner on the deck, Victoria showed them to their rooms. Emma's delight at having her own princess room was infectious, and she insisted on Victoria being the one to tuck her in. Owen watched from the doorway as Victoria sat on the edge of Emma's bed, listening intently to his daughter's animated recount of their day. When Emma asked for a story, Victoria didn't hesitate, launching into a tale about a brave little girl who befriended a lonely dragon. The tenderness in Victoria's voice as she wove the story squeezed something in Owen's chest. Later, after Emma had fallen asleep, Owen found Victoria on the deck, gazing out at the moonlit lake. He joined her at the railing, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "Thank you for today," he said. "Emma hasn't been this happy in a long time." Victoria turned to face him. "It's been a joy having you both here, this house." She gestured to the structure behind them. "It's beautiful but usually empty. Today it felt like a home." Owen understood what she wasn't saying. Despite her success and wealth, Victoria was lonely. "Why me?" he asked, the question that had been lingering since their first dinner together. "You could have anyone." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "The night of the accident, when you helped me out of the car, you looked at me and saw just a person who needed help. Not a Lancaster, not a billionaire, not a potential business connection or media opportunity. Just a woman." She took a step closer. "Do you know how rare that is in my world? To be seen for who I am rather than what I represent." Owen reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "And who are you, Victoria Lancaster?" "Someone who's tired of being alone," she whispered. "Someone who hasn't felt this alive in years." The kiss that followed was gentle at first, a careful exploration rather than a passionate declaration. But as Victoria's arms wrapped around his neck, pulling him closer, Owen felt something crack open inside him, a door he'd kept locked since Melissa's death, now swinging wide. When they separated, both slightly breathless, Victoria rested her forehead against his. "I'm falling for you, Owen Bennett, and your remarkable daughter. Is that completely insane given how different our lives are?" Owen laughed softly. "Probably, but I'm falling too." The weekend passed in a blur of simple pleasures. More swimming, board games with Emma, quiet conversations after she'd gone to bed. By Sunday evening, when the time came to return to the city, Owen felt a profound reluctance to leave this peaceful bubble they'd created. As they stood beside the car that would take Owen and Emma home, Victoria knelt to hug Emma goodbye. "Can we come back next weekend?" Emma asked, clinging to Victoria's neck. Victoria looked up at Owen, the question in her eyes extending beyond just another weekend visit. It was about the future, about possibilities neither of them had anticipated when a silver Aston Martin had crashed on a rainy night. "We'd love to," Owen said, the decision feeling both momentous and completely natural. "If Victoria wants us." Victoria stood, taking both their hands in hers. "I want you both. Very much." The following months saw a gradual integration of their lives. Victoria began spending more evenings at Owen and Emma's apartment than at her downtown penthouse, claiming she preferred the cozy space to her sterile showroom. Owen, in turn, began taking on consulting work for the Lancaster Foundation's renovation project, his confidence growing as Victoria championed his vision to the board. Emma thrived with Victoria's presence in her life, soaking up the woman's attention and affection like a flower turning toward the sun. For her part, Victoria seemed to relish the role of bonus parent, never trying to replace Melissa but carving out her own special relationship with Emma. The transition wasn't without challenges. Victoria's ex-boyfriend made good on his threats, planting a story in the tabloids about Victoria's toy boy carpenter, when photographs of them together inevitably surfaced. Owen was approached by journalists offering money for his side of the story. Victoria's board questioned her judgment, suggesting Owen was after her fortune. Through it all, they protected Emma and stood firmly together, their commitment to each other only strengthening under scrutiny. Victoria handled the press, and her board with the same steady competence she brought to everything, while Owen weathered the sideways glances and whispered comments at work sites with quiet dignity. 6 months after the accident, Owen stood in Victoria's penthouse, watching the sunset paint the city skyline in hues of gold and pink. Emma was spending the night with a friend, giving them a rare evening alone. "I have something to show you," Victoria said, taking his hand and leading him to her home office. On her desk lay architectural plans that Owen recognized immediately as the Lancaster Foundation's Children's Center. "The board approved your design," she said, eyes bright with excitement. "They want you to lead the project. Full creative control, proper budget, your name on the building's dedication plaque." Owen studied the plans, which incorporated all the elements he'd suggested: natural light, flexible spaces, areas where children could feel both safe and inspired. "This is incredible. But won't people say it's favoritism?" Victoria's expression grew serious. "Owen, I've had to make compromises my entire career to prove I earned my position rather than inheriting it. I've second-guessed decisions that I knew were right because I worried about perception. I'm done living that way." She stepped closer, taking his face in her hands. "Your design is brilliant. The board approved it on merit, not because we're together. I won't diminish your talent or my judgment because people might talk." Owen wrapped his arms around her waist, drawing her against him. "When did you get so wise? I learned from a certain carpenter who taught me that what matters isn't what you have, but who you choose to share it with." Victoria's smile turned mischievous. "Speaking of sharing things." She reached into her pocket and withdrew a small box, holding it out to him. Owen's breath caught as he recognized its significance. "Victoria, open it first," she urged. Inside was not a traditional engagement ring but 3 keys on a simple silver ring. Owen looked at her questioningly. "One is to this penthouse," Victoria explained. "One is to the lake house. And one is to a property I just purchased, a Victorian fixer-upper by the park. It needs a complete renovation, which I thought might interest you." "You bought a house," Victoria nodded. "I thought perhaps it could be ours. Yours, mine, and Emma's. A fresh start in a home we create together." Owen closed his hand around the keys, emotion tightening his throat. "Are you asking me to marry you, Victoria Lancaster? I'm asking you to build a life with me, Owen Bennett." Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "To make a home together. The legal details can follow if and when you're ready." Owen pulled her close, kissing her with all the love and gratitude that had been building since that rainy night 6 months ago. "Yes," he whispered against her lips. "To all of it, yes." 1 year to the day after the accident, Owen stood in the spacious kitchen of their renovated Victorian home, putting the finishing touches on a celebration dinner. Emma dashed in, her school uniform replaced with a party dress, her excitement palpable. "Is Victoria home yet?" she demanded, peering out the window for the 10th time in as many minutes. "Not yet, princess," Owen replied, checking the roast in the oven. "Her last meeting might run a bit late. But she knows it's our special day, right?" Owen smiled at his daughter's concern. "Of course she does. She wouldn't miss it." As if on cue, they heard the front door open and Victoria's voice called out, "I'm home." Emma raced to greet her, and Owen followed at a more measured pace, wiping his hands on a dish towel. He found them in the entry hall, Victoria crouched down to Emma's level as the girl chattered excitedly about the day's significance. "And Daddy says we have a surprise for you," Emma concluded breathlessly. Victoria raised an eyebrow at Owen as she stood, accepting his kiss with a smile. "A surprise, Should I be worried?" "Probably," Owen teased, taking her hand and leading her to the dining room where the table was set elegantly, candles already lit, their flames casting a warm glow over the antique wood. "It's beautiful," Victoria said, taking in the scene. "But what's the occasion, the accident anniversary, that and something else?" Owen nodded to Emma, who skipped to the sideboard and retrieved a large envelope, presenting it to Victoria with ceremonial gravity. Victoria opened it carefully, extracting several official-looking documents. Her eyes widened as she scanned the papers, then flew to Owen's face. "Are these adoption papers?" Owen confirmed. "If you want to, legally, officially become Emma's parent." Victoria's hand flew to her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. She looked at Emma, who was watching anxiously. "You want this too, sweetheart," Emma nodded vigorously. "I already have the best daddy, and now I can have the best mom too. Well, my second best mom," she added carefully, "because my first mom is in heaven." Victoria knelt, opening her arms, and Emma rushed into them. "I would be honored to be your second best mom," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Owen joined their embrace, his heart so full it felt impossible to contain. A year ago, he'd been a struggling widower, focused merely on survival. Now he stood in a home they'd renovated together, with the daughter who was his heart and the woman who'd unexpectedly become his future. "I love you both so much," Victoria said, rising to kiss Owen while keeping an arm around Emma. "We love you too," Owen replied, thinking of the rain-slicked night that had changed everything. He'd stopped to help a stranger in need, never imagining she would crash not just her car but straight into his carefully guarded heart. As they sat down to dinner, their laughter and conversation filling the once empty rooms of their home, Owen knew with absolute certainty that some accidents were truly meant to be.